So Oscar the Mage is going to be here from the Light faction in just a couple days, and it looks like they're back to doing something I like, doing the skill review earlier in the week, like Tuesday today. Not too bad, instead of waiting till Wednesday or Thursday. Now, remember, this is going to be the Chinese New Year hero, so chances are this might be a very impactful hero. It feels like typically the heroes that have been coming out on the Chinese New Year and Christmas times have been pretty solid, maybe not as good as the old days, but I think I might be a little biased on this one because it's a Light faction hero and he will fit perfectly into the Light's army. So I'm going to be doing this event. I'm going to be building this hero. I might even try to build him on a new account to see what he actually performs like, because it seems like he has a lot of damage and Dazzle CC, which is something we don't see very often. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let's jump right into it. All right, so jumping into the skill card, again, it is confirmed. You can see the mage text in the background here. Even though he looks like a priest, he's definitely a mage. So what does this hero actually do? Active skill, Dawn, Undying Summons. Active skill, deals attack damage to all enemies. I love that every time I see that on a mage hero card. It increases self precision for several rounds. Not like a super impactful stat, but still decent for offense. If self has radiance, there is a chance to deal a certain percentage of the target's max HP. Damage has a cap based on his attack, of course, to enemies that have burn. If the effect is not triggered, there's a chance to inflict Dazzle. So essentially, if he has this radiance effect, which we'll talk about a little bit later, how he gets it, he's going to do extra damage. If it does not, he's going to CC them, which is interesting because Dazzle can be a very powerful CC attack, especially against specific heroes that have multi-target, multi-layer hits. Basically just focuses on one target instead of the entire team. Like basically if he had Dazzle on himself, he would not be doing damage to everybody. He'd be dealing damage to one single target. So interesting. For a regular base 6 faction hero, non-transcendence, it's not bad. It's actually decent, I would say. The next part here is, of course, talking about what the Dazzle effect does. All skills of a Dazzle hero will compulsively target only several of their enemies. This effect will be replaced by Taunt. So just beware. It's random how it works. Of course, his base stats with Eternal Proverb is holy damage, attack, damage reduction, and HP. I like that. That sounds pretty solid to me. Maybe crit would have been a little better, but it is what it is. Holy Radiance passive skill changes his basic attack to dealing damage to the backline enemies with a chance to dazzle them for several rounds. I mean, this kind of feels like a basic attack of Lord of Fear Aspen, essentially hitting the entire backline of enemies, which is the better option of the two front line and back line, and of course hitting them with Dazzle. It's not as powerful, I think, as Fear Abyssal Gaze, of course, but Dazzle is something we haven't seen enough of, I think, in heroes, and it usually only comes from light heroes anyway, so I think this has some potential, especially on the regular version of the hero. When we talk about the Transcendence coming at Chinese New Year in February, that could be pretty strong. Lastly, Merciful Aegis, literally more text than every other skill combined. When the battle starts, or when you are in as a substitute, you grant yourself layers of Enlightenment, each of which increases your damage reduction and all damage dealt. That's pretty dang good depending on how many layers you get and what those values are. That can be pretty impactful, especially with something like a Melodic Strings. Each time after an enemy releases an active skill, it will essentially consume one of your Enlightenment layers to deal attack damage to the target and place a burn on them. Doesn't seem like his chance. It's just going to place a burn on them, which is pretty good Phoenix synergy as well, dealing a certain percentage of attack damage for several rounds. Now, if it's the typical like 2 or 3 round, it's only going to last like a round or so, based on how the burn should do damage instantly when applied. That's 1 round worth of damage. It's kind of weird how burns and bleeds and poisons work and everything, but it hasn't been fixed since. So that's interesting. So basically, whenever an enemy releases an active skill, which probably won't happen in the first round, which means for the first round, you should be pretty safe with your damage reduction and all damage dealt buff, which is cool. Then when the first round ends, it will clear all Enlightenment and grant self Radiance. So this is that Radiance keyword that we were talking about in the active skill, which is pretty smart because if you're not running energy on him, I mean, I guess that's good because you're gonna get, I guess it's not stackable, and it doesn't matter if you have 1 layer of Enlightenment, 20, whatever, just enlightenment in general is important because radiance is considered a control effect that you're putting on yourself, which, strange, not stackable, increases the owner's holy damage. That could be very powerful, could be. When the owner releases basic attacks or active skills, reduces the target's precision for several rounds with a chance to burn the target, dealing attack damage for several rounds. I don't know if it sounds very clutch because, like, again, this is where if you are under radiance, that's the important part because you're going to do the extra damage to enemies that have a burn. But I don't know. It's intriguing. It's intriguing because, again, you just think of it this way. Nobody on the enemy team uses any of their active skills round 1. You have enlightenment. At the end of the round, it clears all that enlightenment and you get yourself with radiance. Okay, that's cool. Increases your holy damage. Going to deal extra damage potentially. Granted, you're sacrificing your all damage dealt. I wonder if this meant to say all damage reduction. So like the enlightenment was a double, because it feels weird to give damage reduction and all damage dealt. I feel like it would be damage reduction and all damage reduction. We'll have to see. That could be a typo of some sort. I have no clue. We'll see. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I might have something over here that might... No, it sounds like even in the WeChat translations is damage. So we'll have to see. But essentially, end of the round, you clear all your enlightenment stacks. You get extra holy damage. You put yourself into this radiant state. And then in that radiant state here, you're going to now guarantee the proc of that. The downside is... you're not really going to have any burns on the enemy, are you? Because it's only going to have burns from active layers. So you're going to want someone on your team to have put a burn on the target. Honestly, in the early game, this might be one of those... oh my gosh, what's the shadow hero's name? I actually forget it now. The little dude. He dies. He puts the burn on everybody for 15 rounds. In the early game, that hero might be actually really clutch with this combination. Now, beyond that, they do recommend things like Crown and Rui Scepter. I don't know if I've ever been like, oh yeah, I have a Dazzle effect. I definitely need a Rui. Because like Rui, you kind of want to use when it's hard CC. This is a very soft CC, just lowering the damage that you're receiving, not like nullifying it like Therapist Blood Betty or something like that would do. So it's interesting. A Crown, yeah, maybe even a Melodic Strings is my opinion what it would be better off with. The Tenants are alright. I mean, Yormtum, yeah. Natalia, yeah. This is a weird one. I don't think this is going to be a hero you're going to consider building. And this is kind of why I feel like maybe you should not have this system like this, and you should be able to put any hero in any slot, or at least like, hey, you need to have an Abyss hero in here, you need a Transcendence hero, like, you know, something like that. I think it would open up a lot more paths to creativity, especially in the early game, on what heroes you might actually use. Now, beyond that, there's one other note. It does say that he is the #1 tenant for... the translation's bad. It says Mist Glass. I think what it means is maybe Melissa, and the #2 tenant for Michelle. The #3 tenant for Sun Wukong, and the #4 tenant for Norton Hague. Not like these really matter because, of course, it's not for any of the current Transcendence heroes, right? No, that's regular. That's Monkey King. That's not Great Sage. I don't think he's a tenant for anybody important, at least right now. So we'll have to see. I don't know. Seems like a cool kit. We'll, of course, build them and have them ready to go for Transcendence the following month. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'll see you guys next time.